This is John Murphy at Murtech.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on March the 22nd in the year of our Lord 2026. Okay, and we've got a lot of good information for you today. Let's go ahead and click on Murtech on Rumble and jump over here to my Rumble channel. This is it. This is the live stream we're talking about, episode 1864. Let's go ahead and get into that. Hi, Debbie BS. Glad you could join us. Let me close out the live chat, slide down here, and click the Show More button to expand out the description box. Okay, hang on here just a second. There we go. Got to check my volume here. All right. We have information from Andrew Klavan, ACLJ Sekulow, Robert Gouveia, and X22 report. But before we get into that, I do have some shout outs to give from Jerry Jag. Just started following my channel. Yeah. You know what? Yeah. Okay, we have Jerry Jag just started following my channel. Simp and Alapada just started following my channel. Tom J just started following my channel. Jinx 53 just started following my channel. Virginia 1954 just started following my channel. Joe Scarafon just started following my channel. Este Lorament just started following my channel. Jesus Lord to all, yes he is, just started following my channel. And Kathy Monks just started following my channel. Okay, Debbie BS reposted my episode 1863. And Debbie BS commented on my daily news wrap-up from last night. Debbie BS and Andrian Smith just commented on my episode 1863. Joe Scarafon and Debbie BS commented on my extra 647A. Perry DS 4919, Trust Verify, and Debbie BS commented on my extra 647B. Shebe 63, Debbie BS, and Cotton Ball 31 commented on my extra 647C. And let's go ahead and give this a thumbs up. Thank you very much, folks, for your comments. I greatly enjoy reading your feedback, and I definitely appreciate your support. So let me give this a thumbs up. And Debbie BS already left a comment, thumbs up number 3. So let me give her a thumbs up too. And right here, if you want to give me another thumbs up, anybody, right here's the little icon below the video you're watching. Okay, let's get into this. Andrew Klavan, The Left's Epic Fury, episode 1271. I'm going to play his monologue, then I'm going to skip it up to about the 8-minute and 49-second mark. So let's check this out.
According to the New York Times, a former newspaper, American forces are in deep trouble in Iran as the wily Iranians continue to attack our bombs with their leaders. According to the Times Middle East Bureau Chief Omar Jihad Mohammed, wave after wave of American bomb and missile attacks have been repelled by an iron dome of Iranian leaders so that the weapons explode harmlessly against their bodies, destroying nothing but the Iranian army, air force, navy, missiles, drones, radar, and of course the Iranian leaders, who are more than willing to sacrifice their lives to protect those Iranian people they haven't yet murdered themselves. In an exclusive interview at an undisclosed location, the New York Times Middle East reporter Omar Jihad Fatwa Mohammed interviewed Iran's chief of police, Fatwa Mohammed Jihad Omar Mamdani, who said, quote, "We have the Americans exactly where we want them since," and while he was unable to finish his sentence because he was assassinated by Israeli Defense Forces, he was immediately replaced by his younger subordinate, Allahu Akbar Mohammed Tucker Jihad Mohammed, who said, quote, "As my predecessor was about to explain, but he was unable to finish his sentence because he was assassinated by Israeli Defense Forces." According to either Iranian officials or CNN reporters, it's difficult to tell the difference, Iran continues to stymie American attacks so that the only thing keeping the U.S. war effort alive is the fact that the French have refused to join the fight, so there's no one who'll surrender for us. And now the Iranians have achieved a, quote, stunning moral victory, unquote, according to CNN chief Middle East correspondent Vladimir Mohammed Jihad Death to America Carlson Mohammed Fatwa. In a move reflecting the enduring strength of the Iranian regime, the nation has replaced the 15 levels of leadership who were wiped out by American and Israeli attacks by appointing as their new supreme leader Mojtaba Khomeini, a one-legged homosexual who's in a coma. President of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, Mohammed Jinping Fatwa Bernie Sanders Jihad, celebrated the appointment of Khomeini, saying, quote, "This is a tremendous leap forward for Iranian diversity, equity, and inclusion. By selecting an unconscious handicapped gay man to ruthlessly oppress their people, Iran has installed an Ayatollah who looks exactly like the sort of person for whom Hollywood has been making movies. We hope this will encourage more people to become one-legged comatose homosexuals so we can begin to fill up our theaters. Otherwise, there'll be no one there to see it when Nicole Kidman finally manages to move her face again," unquote. American branches of the organization Queers for Palestine also celebrated the appointment of the gay Ayatollah, with queer house parties across the nation at which they honored Islamic tradition by climbing up to the rooftops and hurling themselves to their deaths. As Queer for Palestine leader Anatol Preposterous announced to his fellow queers, quote, "Iran has struck a blow against the homophobic splat." Although I'm not sure if that was the last word in the sentence or just the sound he made when he hit the pavement. The organization Feminists for Palestine was also pleased by the Ayatollah's appointment. FFP President Sally Ann Preposterous, no relation, said, quote, "Although we're disappointed Iran has not yet elevated a woman to leadership, as feminists, we feel that a homosexual in a coma will at least represent people who hate women without thinking, which is what feminism is all about," unquote. As for the new Ayatollah, though he has not yet been able to issue a statement of his own, the regime has released some of the old messages he posted on the website sleepinggayamputees.com, which include such remarks as "must have good sense of humor" and "if you like my picture, swipe right." Meanwhile, according to PBS Middle East reporter Mohammed Mamdani Jihad Tucker Fatwa Jihad, global financial markets continue to reel at the plucky Iranian attacks on the Strait of Hormuz. PBS interviewed surviving Iranian naval commander Mohammed Jihad Fuentes Fatwa Carlson, who said, quote, "We will continue to attack shipping here until," but he was unable to finish his sentence because he was assassinated by Israeli Defense Forces. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
Well, I'm certainly glad he got that all cleared up for us, because you know what, I had some real concerns about what was going on, but now everything seems to be fine. Okay.
Changing the world.
Drowning on.
Chapter 1, Droning On. So, I didn't want to come in and talk about the war very much because I feel like it's in an undecided place right now where it is, and I just don't want to go on about it. But I realize that I sort of have to talk about it because it's the context in which everything else I'm thinking about, and I think many of us are thinking about, is taking place. So let me briefly talk about what's happening in Iran, and of course, what I say has to be taken from my personal point of view, and I will tell you what it is about what my personal point of view is. I've told you once before, but I'll say it again. We've heard a lot of stuff about Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. He can't get the message out. He's the pawn of Israel, and the pro-Israel people are probably more happy that Iran is being taken out. I don't blame them for that. I can totally understand why that is a good thing. I've talked about this before. I'm not enthusiastic about war because I just think war sucks. I think it is an incredible waste of manpower and all our technology and all that stuff. It's always bad. War is always bad. Even good wars are bad. But tornadoes are bad, and tornadoes happen. And so you always have to talk about them in the context of the fact that they're going to happen. Same thing is true as wars. Something can't go along without fighting wars. And while you don't want your country to necessarily be the unjust aggressor, you do want them to fight to win. And the question is whether a particular a particular war is going to be worse than the alternative. And in this case, the answer is, in theory, obviously, we had to fight this war, and it's bad if we lose and if Trump and country suffer for it. It's great if we win, if we get regime change in Iran and Iran becomes a part of the community of nations such as it is, but it becomes less of a threat to the Middle East. And if it's half and half, if we, half good and half bad, if we do some damage, but we don't entirely win, which I think is the most likely outcome. I'm not saying that's what will happen. I'm saying that's the most likely thing to happen. So my feeling about this is this war is ultimately the way we feel about it is going to depend on the outcome. And if the outcome isn't what we like, we'll blame all these different people, but it doesn't matter because all I care about is the good of the country. And I don't believe we could have just sat back and allowed them to develop nukes. That was the way it was obviously going. And there's a feeling in the West, and we can talk about this more another time, but there's a feeling in the West, I think, that it's time for the West to die. It's not my feeling. It's not your feeling. There's a feeling throughout Europe, I think, that Europe just wants to play America and Russia and China off each other and fold itself into its little blanket of, social welfare and just slowly pass away and let the Muslim migrants take it over. And the left wants us to be the same as Europe. They just think it's time for us to be over. This idea of freedom, this idea of individualism, this idea of, getting things done rather than worrying about the forms of things. It's just time for that to be over so they can bring about the perfect socialist paradise. And I don't want that, and Trump doesn't want that. And so I think that is why he is doing what he's doing, and I want to explain that. Sometimes when I do these openings, I do these very, I think they're really funny Q&As, and I think they're funny because they make my wife laugh, which is basically what I'm here for. So let me do a serious or semi-serious Q&A. Like Q, why are we bombing Iran, right? I think this is the thing that I keep reading about in the paper. Trump isn't telling us Iran is a nuclear threat. And I don't know, people talk about how imminent that threat is. How imminent does it have to be? I mean, do we have to wait until they're ready, got their finger on the button and then just kill them at the last minute? No, this is an evil nation. They've been killing Americans for 50 years. They've sought to dominate the Middle East. Every violent threat in the Middle East, every cause of war in the Middle East, Israel is not a cause of war. Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, all the anti-American terrorists, just about everything is funded by Iran. They are the world's top exporter of terrorism. And so we're in Iran for all those reasons. That is the reason it is okay for us to go into Iran. But mostly we're in Iran, I think, because Iran is central to Chinese plans to take over Taiwan. And everything Trump thinks about is about China. And he sees a major Cold War, and his outlook is focused on preventing them taking over the world. He doesn't want to destroy them. He wants to compete with them, but he wants to compete with them from a position of strength. And that's what's behind the war. So Q, why can't President Trump just come out and say that? And the reason is Trump wants good relations with China while he undermines their plans to take over the world. Again, he's not trying to destroy them. He just wants to deal with them from a position of strength, so he doesn't tell the media everything he thinks. I'm told that he just made an example with was it the president of China, of Japan, who was in the room, the prime minister, and he said he said with him there, he said it's like you guys did with Pearl Harbor. We want to keep the element of surprise. So you ask, what has China got to do with Iran? This is where they get a lot of their cheap oil. It comes from the Strait of Hormuz, and they want Iran, if they go into Taiwan, the Chinese want Iran to be able to choke off oil to their enemies and to make sure that oil keeps flowing to them while they're fighting with us. So Trump wants to be in a position where he can go to them and say, hey, President Xi, we love you. We love the Chinese. We have a great relationship together. And we want to keep that oil, just because we happen to be now in the Strait of Hormuz, we just want that oil to keep on flowing to you. I wouldn't want anything to happen to your lovely oil. So let's just sit down and make deals. That's what Trump is going for. We've destroyed the Iranian leadership. We've destroyed their infrastructure. We've destroyed all their war machines. So Q, why can't we stop them? What they're doing in the Strait is they're jamming up the Strait. And the reason is drones. This is why we can't stop them. The Iran Revolutionary Guards have teams of guys with drones who can attack shipping and let their friends through and skimmies. That's why NATO won't get involved, because they don't want to get involved. They don't want to get mired fighting for the Strait of Hormuz with some guys who can take them out with a Radio Shack weapon. Basically, these things cost nothing. The missiles that we fire, they cost a lot. The drones cost under $1,000. They're nothing. And just as a side note, a couple of months ago, I had a dinner party with some very knowledgeable people. When I say I had a dinner party, I meant me and my wife prepared a dinner party. My role was to come down every now and again during the week and say, honey, how's the dinner party coming along? And anyway, we had these very knowledgeable people there, and they were telling me, and this is months ago, they were saying the Ukrainians are inventing new generations of drones, like every week, to fight the Russians and to attack the Russians. And the Americans can't do that because of red tape. So the Ukrainians, in their chaos, are more free in this particular regard than we are. They can invent these drones. And now, because we're fighting in the Middle East, where Iran, though it's barely still extant, Iran is barely there anymore, it can still attack ships in the Strait of Hormuz with these Radio Shack weapons. Now Ukraine is ahead of us, and we're going to them and saying, how do we make a drone that can do what they're doing? So, Q, are we going to win? It is a question of time. Politically, Trump can't wage this war forever, because he'll become so unpopular that he will turn America over to our leftist enemies. Because if he's really far down in the polls, AOC will be the next president of the United States. And he's already unlikely to win the midterms, though he could. It's not written in stone yet. But his legacy depends on the next president being in his image, being a MAGA guy. And the hawks want him to stay in Iran until every goal is achieved, until we have a new, wonderful government and everything's perfect. And the left and the right haters on either side want him out because they hate America. And personally, I think Trump's got about 2 or 3 more weeks before his popularity starts to critter. And if he can't solve the problem of how to take control of the strait by then, he's going to have to leave it or else turn our government over to the left, which we don't want him to do and which he's not going to do. So the question is, would leaving too soon be as terrible as the hawk? Remember, the hawks are going to say this is the worst thing ever. And the doves are going to say it too. The people who don't want us to be there at all are going to say, he didn't finish the job. He didn't finish the job. Trump put out a tweet on Truth Social that says, I wonder what would happen if we finished off what's left of the Iranian terror state and let the countries that use it, we don't, be responsible for the so-called strait. That would get some of our non-responsive allies in gear and fast. So our allies don't want to help because they don't want to get mired there. And Trump is saying, well, what if we just leave? What if we just, kill off, the Iranian Guard, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and all their security apparatus and destroy all their weapons and just go away and leave you to have a problem with the Strait of Hormuz because you get your oil there. We get it from our places, from Texas. We get it from Santa Barbara, where they've opened up the old derricks out in the ocean that I used to fly over when I was learning how to fly a plane. So he's not too worried about it. And I think he's right. I think sometimes you just have to declare victory and walk away. I hope he wins. I hope he takes over the Strait of Hormuz. I hope our Marines can take it over. And I think if he does, that's great. But if he leaves, it will still have been a victory. And that's what we may have to settle for.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. I will include this in my daily news wrap-up so you can watch the rest of this. There's about an hour left of his video here. Let me click on the Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Andrew Klavan. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here. Let me close out the live chat. I was chatting a little bit with Debbie BS and Susie Paul 2016. So let me close that out. Oh, here we go. I don't know what that's all about. There we go. All I got to do is click the right thing, I guess. Okay. ACLJ Sekulow, American Center for Law and Justice. DOJ subpoenas Comey. Probably heard about this. Let's get their take on it.
James Comey has been subpoenaed in what they're considering the grand conspiracy, a case against ex-officials who investigated and prosecuted President Trump, of course, saying that they were trying to stop the election back in 2016.
That's right. So as you remember, when Tulsi Gabbard became the director of national intelligence, she did start looking at the work product of the intelligence community. That is part of what is her purview. There's 19 intelligence agencies that are under the purview of the director of national intelligence. And she released a lot of findings about the way that they abuse the system and change the rules and made up things, included things that previously they had discredited, in order to try and frame President who had then been elected at that point and say he was a part of a Russia collusion conspiracy, which ended up being the Russia collusion hoax. We've been through all that. She referred to it, though, as this grand conspiracy within different intelligence agencies, with James Comey, with James Clapper, with John Brennan. Even the president of the United States at the time, Barack Obama, was caught up in this as well. And when you look at this, the prosecutor has been working now since last year and has subpoenaed more than 130 or issued more than 130 subpoenas since that grand jury was impaneled. This investigation isn't at the beginning, but now you're seeing that the former FBI director, James Comey himself, is being subpoenaed in this investigation. To me, that looks like you do all the grunt work. You start with probably the lowest players in this, or people that may have information, and you build up, and then you've got your narrative before the grand jury, and then you're going to have the people that you're probably seeking an indictment against, both James Comey, James Clapper, John Brennan. Those are the ones that, remember, John Brennan said, I know that the dossier, we don't think it's true, but doesn't it ring true? Those are the types of things that are going to potentially get them in trouble.
How could we forget?
Was the way they weaponized the intelligence against the person who had just been elected by the American people. When you get to that point, they start subpoenaing the players that are probably the target of the investigation. You almost infer that they are getting close to asking for charges to be returned from the grand jury, that they are getting near the end of the investigation stage and potentially going toward indictment.
I want to bring that up because this is not some thing that just happened. Tulsi Gabbard was talking about this almost a year ago at this point. Last July was discussing this with reporters during a White House presser. I think we should flash back. Let's hear from it. This is our friend, former colleague, Tulsi Gabbard.
Based on what you now see, do you believe President Obama is guilty of treason?
I'm leaving the criminal charges to the Department of Justice. I'm not an attorney, but as I've said previously, when you look at the intent behind creating a fake manufactured intelligence document that directly contradicts multiple assessments that were created by the intelligence community, the expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy against the American people, our republic, and an attempt to undermine President Trump's administration.
And remember, Logan, that is the director of national intelligence. She
Back in July. So again,
right,
nearly a year ago. So people that they start pushing narratives going, well, they're only doing this right now to distract what's going on. This is clearly, as you said, a late stage process of this.
Right. And after she presented this information, there were also criminal referrals that were given over from John Ratcliffe, the CIA director, to the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice started working on almost a year ago. We always talk about sometimes the wheels of justice turn very slowly. We talk about with some of our cases, how it takes years to get the resolution finally. And sometimes it goes all the way to the Supreme Court. That they are doing an investigation the right way in order to secure an indictment if they believe that there's been a violation of the law. You don't want it to be rushed. And I would also point to some of the charges against James Comey that were dropped in the Northern District of Virginia were because it was kind of rushed. They were up against a timeline with a statute of limitations and rushed to get it done, and that judge threw them out. I feel like the U.S. attorney in Florida is wanting to do this in such a way that it is, if there are indictments, charges to be brought here, it is not going to be just thrown out because it was rushed. It's going through a process. Now, this conspiracy angle that both Tulsi Gabbard brought up, but then also the way that it's being described by the media, if that is what the U.S. attorney is doing, now remember, grand jury proceedings are secret. We won't know what is said in that. We don't know and should not know. Those are secret for a reason. But if that is the angle they are going for, a conspiracy, that is where the timeline of the statute of limitations shifts. Because if you have an individual crime, then the crime itself, there's normally about a 5-year statute of limitations.
So if you can tie it back.
Some things have different things, extended,
Right.
but typically one of these, if it was just an individual action, would be like a 5-year statute of limitations. 2016 way beyond that.
Yeah, 10 years.
The difference is that with a conspiracy charge, if the individuals guilty of that conspiracy or alleged to be guilty of that are continuing the conspiracy, they haven't given it up.
Yeah, they're tied to it.
And when you hear from these individuals, they still repeat the same lines from that time, then that conspiracy can be looked at by the U.S. law and courts and prosecutors as an ongoing conspiracy. The point of the 2016 election may be well over, but the continuance of that to still hold the line on their narrative that they weaponize the government for can extend that. And even some reporters point back to some testimony that even in 2023 that James Comey had given that would be in line with the original conspiracy that they are alleging that could also extend it. So there's a lot of wiggle room, so to speak, when it becomes a conspiracy.
Let's go to Michael in Florida. Go ahead. Watching on YouTube.
Gentlemen, I just want to say that being the consummate skeptic when it comes to the left and the woke left, never seeming to have to pay for anything. But yet with this new update with Comey, I just got to say, this makes me really happy.
You know, Michael, if there is an indictment and they are able to prosecute James Comey, I think there are a lot of people that will share that feeling with you. I know a lot of people that watch this broadcast get so jaded because we do talk about this. We've been around this for so long.
This is a decade at this point.
Exactly. And it is frustrating when there's seems to be no accountability. Now, there's not no accountability. James Comey is no longer the FBI director. He may think that he has some sort of platform. Really, I don't think anyone watches James Comey's little post on
seashells, right?
He did the 8647. Yeah. He also did one weird one about like the naming of a certain one of these operations. Like, maybe it was Arctic Frost and it was just so uncomfortable. No one really likes James Comey, so I think to some degree he is held responsible. His entire legacy is completely ruined. But yes, I think that what many people in the government did right after President Trump was elected rises to the level of criminality. And I think a lot of us would like to see someone actually held accountable. Remember, there was a CIA attorney that purposely lied on a filing to a judge and got a slap on the wrist. So we have seen too many people evade real accountability. It would be nice to see something.
Look, with the ACLJ cases, I have a list here next to me. One of them is earlier this week, we had big deadlines in our FOIA cases involving James Comey's use of spies in the White House and about Arctic Frost. Again, 2 of our roughly 20 ongoing FOIA cases are against what was considered to be, I guess you'd say, deep state operations. So again, the ACLJ is involved in a lot of these things in different ways.
All right, there you have it, folks. Let me click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from American Center for Law and Justice. This is the video I shared with you. I'm following the channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back over here and see what Robert Gouveia has. And the thing about Comey, I don't know that anything is going to come of this, but I think he's probably got to pay for an attorney. Although, he is a Democrat, so I'm sure somebody will do it for him pro bono so that he doesn't have to pay because, Democrats are like that. But at any rate, Robert Gouveia, Trump vindicated as Mueller whistleblower reveals serious misconduct. What else is new? Let's see what he's talking about here.
Did he call him, Pam? Whistleblower now speaks out, saying that the Mueller investigation from the so-called special counsel into President Trump was even more weaponized and politically biased than we even knew. Miranda Devine got her hands on a letter from Chuck Grassley, sent this one over earlier this week to Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. And he says, hey guys, guess what? I've got some documents and excerpts that show that what Robert Mueller, Andrew Weissman, and the rest of these people like Andy McCabe, they were all using this excuse to attack the president's first administration. And many of these same people, or let me say their parallels. Andy McCabe's gone. Klein-Smith is gone. But many of the secret moles who did this back then are still in the office and in these agencies right now. So Miranda gives us a little bit of background. She says, an FBI agent who was assigned back then to special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Trump's campaign in 2016 has now made bombshell allegations, charging that misconduct, political bias, and overzealous thoughts permeated the entire team to the point of festooning the walls of their office with anti-Trump cartoons. And then they go on MS Now with Jen Psaki, and they tell Jen, we're just doing our job to protect American democracy, while they hate the man that they're investigating, apparently independently and nonpartisanly. She says there was a let's get him attitude that colored the 2-year investigation into false claims that Trump colluded with Russia to win 2016. And this was the first attempt to destroy his presidency from the very beginning so that he couldn't do anything. We have enemies inside the gates that are perverting things on both ends. They use their position to target their political opponents and then turn around and use their position to protect their political favored class. All of this we've covered here for years, but you remember this guy, Robert Mueller. He, of course, testified, and then many people thought he had Alzheimer's or something. But in a Sunday night letter to Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, Chuck Grassley, who is the whistleblower whisperer, he detailed the most troubling aspects of the agent's account, saying it confirms longstanding concerns that the political bias rotted the decision-making process within the team. The American public deserves answers. We've got the full letter queued up, but of course, we remember that the investigation ran until March 2019. Trump came in January 2017, and for years, they spent $30 million and then ultimately said, oh, there's no evidence of Russia collusion. In May 23, another special counsel, John Durham, who did nothing, released a report describing the Trump-Russia probe as seriously flawed and said the FBI willfully ignored material that did not support the narrative of a collusive relationship between Trump and Russia because they didn't collude. But we still had to deal with it every single day. Trump, Russia collusion. Trump, Russia collusion. We had that Jake Tapper song that people made all day, 24/7, every day. Hillary saying the election was stolen. Then when they actually steal an election, then they come out and they blame us. How dare you not accept the results of the outcome of the election? Grassley has asked Bondi, can you please give us the emails? We already know Bondi is not really keen on releasing much of anything. Files and personnel records relevant to the agent's allegations by March 29th. So we'll see if those drop. Here's the letter that Chuck Grassley sent over to Pam and Kash, saying, all right, Pam and Kash, this is Chuck Grassley speaking. My office has obtained a December 2020 FBI FD302 interview document that was conducted with an FBI agent who worked with Robert Mueller, the so-called special counsel. This agent was involved in the Crosswind investigation, which was a part of a subpart of called Crossfire Hurricane, which was the broader investigation. According to the interview document, the reason for the interview was an internal investigation regarding an allegation that an analyst called Brian Otten may have violated internal code, which is related to judicial proceedings. And in the report, the document details substantial allegations of misconduct and political bias that occurred within Robert Mueller's office. These are the same people that are pretty intelligent, I'll say. Andrew Weissman with his weird voice. He says that he's a smart guy and he knows about American democracy, blah, 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 all the things. And then when it's time for him to turn over his cell phone to the government, oops, he enters the password wrong like 100 times. Oops. iPhone deletes itself, resets itself. Oh, it's a legal hack. Everybody's phone gets wiped before it's turned back over to the feds. How convenient. All of a sudden, they're idiots. They can't remember their 4-digit PIN. For example, the FD302 states multiple personnel were removed from Robert Mueller's team because, quote, they saw concerning things and they voiced their concern. So you're fired. You don't want to be a part of our weaponized prosecution of the president. You're gone. Get out. Pack your bags and leave. It's also saying that former FBI deputy director, the old Dan Bongino, Andrew McCabe, referred to the president in a derogatory manner. Andy McCabe, of course, is all over the cables. He got a big fat settlement, I believe, with the FBI, paid him a bunch of money. And now he's a media analyst who talks to us and lectures us about democracy. There was also an attorney who wanted to remove the negative tone of the remark in the document. The FD302 specifically notes Aaron Zelensky, assistant special counsel to Robert Mueller, bias and states that the Mueller team, quote, created caricatures and cartoons that were anti-Trump and pasted them all over their disgusting, filthy cubicles. The FD302 also notices instances where security protocols were violated and classified information was mishandled, as well as potential FISA abuses, including FISA renewals on Crosswind that were all unnecessary. Yet Kevin Klein-Smith allegedly said about FISA corrections, he says, we can't send this to the DOJ, can't let them know about it, or else we're in trouble. The FD302 also states that an investigation into Tom Barak should not have been opened. And finally, it also notes that alcohol was consumed by Mueller team members while they were on the clock for the taxpayer, getting hammered out there, doing beer bongs. I have listed the relevant excerpts below. Here's part of it. Potentially improper FISA renewals and misleading the FISA Security Council, saying the second big battle was when Ahmad asked Corey if we should renew FISA, or the court, I'm sorry, not council, for the third time. Corey said, no. Should we renew it? No. Corey, redacted, said that they were getting all of the information they needed from interviews with the target of the investigation who was cooperating. We already got everything we need. Corey said we did not need to do a FISA because it would not give us anything more, and there was nothing in the past FISA that aided the investigation other than to prove that the target was being honest. Everybody's talking. He says, I also did not agree with renewing it for different reasons, so none of us wanted to use FISA. Now, as the investigation progressed, the facts that we originally thought meant one thing were learned to mean something else. Per reporting from another agency, and what we learned from the investigation up to that point of the third renewal, there were no corroborating facts that tied crosswind to certain facts that we thought were originally true. So we thought, oh, Trump-Russia collusion, get FISA warrants, we start to spy on the campaign, start to spy on the administration. And then they learned, oh, actually, there wasn't Alpha Bank cell phones or Yoda phones, or there wasn't a PP tape dossier that was actually going to be used as blackmail against. Oops, sorry. So they said, For instance, there was nothing confirming Crosswind received a large money payment, and nothing confirming Crosswind had a meeting in another country for the purposes of the initial allegation. I pointed out these specific corrections to the application. We filed to spy using FISA. We put facts in there in order to get that approved. Turns out those facts are wrong. Oh, there was also anti-Trump bias. Grassley says in this excerpt, he quotes from an interview. He says, this person is communicating to other FBI agents. He says, I believe Vivian Moon was removed from the investigation because she would not allow the investigation to become politicized. Shout out to Vivian Moon. Okay. We appreciate you, Vivian. Thank you. She says, this is ridiculous. We're not going to weaponize this thing. They said, Vivian, you're fired. Get out. Corey, Burns, Murphy, and Tapin were all removed because they saw concerning things and they voiced their concerns. Shout out to Corey, Burns, Murphy, and Tapin. Michelle Taylor was a great agent. I heard her arguing with the prosecutors because one of the attorneys wanted to change the characterization that deputy director made toward President Trump. McCabe is, in my opinion, a liar and a hack and probably a traitor, and somebody who is now being elevated to the top of the Democratic hierarchy. Apparently, McCabe referred to President Trump in a derogatory manner, I'm sure, and Taylor refused to change the tone of the 302 to reflect that McCabe spoke about him without the negative connotation. Okay, so she says, well, you called him an orange frost man or whatever, and so I'm putting that in the report. That's what you called him. Then we see there were also improper FISA requests, calling it overzealous thoughts and bias that permeated in the investigation in an attempt to, quote, get someone, saying, I believe that there are several things that were wrong with the investigation. First, and the most egregious, was that despite the change in our information, we still put out a third FISA renewal to continue our spying, which was the fourth FISA against the target. And second, there were overzealous thoughts and bias that permeated the investigation. There was a let's get him attitude rather than an independent, nonpartisan, neutral investigation just meant to determine the facts and the truth. Third, all of those who voiced a differing opinion were removed from the team. Get out. Fourth, we were told that there were SCO personnel, not FBI. That may be a direct quote in my journal, and the implications of this are far more reaching than just words. Now, fifth, like special counsel office personnel and not the FBI. Fifth, as described by another person, Barnett, there was a get someone attitude versus a normal investigative attitude of finding the truth of what happened. Jeannie Rhee had a shouting match with Ahmad. Ahmad was lax with security protocols, and I witnessed at least one instance that I later reported to our security official. For example, she brought classified documents to a meeting at the Washington field office without adherence to FBI security policy. Oh, maybe her house should be raided too. She brought her classified notebook to the meeting without a proper carrying bag. And what was worse, she came to the Washington field office from her residence, meaning she kept her notebook at her home. Arrest her. This was reported by myself. I reported it to security. The Washington field office attorney who was present at the meeting also noticed this and discussed it with me. In the beginning of the investigation, I reached out to Sally Moyer with my concerns that Ahmad had access to raw FISA info, but Moyer indicated, well, so what? This was acceptable because she was part of the investigative team, all documented in an email exchange with Moyer. And while it did not occur frequently, I did see alcoholic drinks being consumed while in the SCO team area. They're just ripping shots and prosecuting their political opponents. Wow. Most of what I articulated here is reflected in my journals as present sense impressions, but not the caricatures or the drinking. And we really like to see what those caricatures are. So here's more from Grassley. He says, all right, based on everything I just shared with you, here's what we need. Pam and Cash, please help. The FD302 confirms longstanding concerns. Political bias rotted the decision-making process within the Mueller team. The American public deserves answers, and so accordingly, Pam and Cash, please provide the answers to the following questions and responsive records no later than March 29th this year. 1, we want all emails relating to the FD302 from all named custodians. This includes all the FISA-related emails. Provide all FISA applications, predication materials, and related reportings. Provide all journals referenced in this document we just read. Provide the 302 where Andy McCabe allegedly referred to Trump in a derogatory manner. What did he call him, Pam? Provide the Rosenstein scoping letter about what we can look into. Provide the 1A file, including all the anti-Trump drawings and caricatures, so we can see them. And part of me wonders if Grassley already has some of this, right? This is kind of why he drips these things out. So he says, Pam, give me the drawings. Do you have the drawings? No, we don't have them. Okay, I do, and I know you have them too. Provide the email with Sally Moyer about Ahmad's alleged security violations, carrying around classified documents in a manila folder and bringing them to and fro. Was any investigation conducted into the allegations that Ahmad potentially mishandled classified info? And if not, why not? If yes, please provide all the records so that we can see. And 9, finally, does the DOJ policy allow consumption of alcohol at work? That might be complicated by Kash Patel drowning that beer with the hockey team, but he may have been off duty during that time. So I don't know if that counts as work. But if not, did the DOJ investigate the allegations that alcohol was consumed in the special counsel office team area? Okay, Kash at least wasn't in a conference room, for crying out loud. He was partying with American champions. If not, why not? If yes, provide all records. Right? So that was like, I don't know. So thank you for your prompt review and your responses. If you have any questions, please contact my committee staff. Signed, sincerely, your friend, Chuck Grassley, Committee on the Judiciary Chairman. And man, we love a good Chuck Grassley drop. So that is now out. We got the report and the answers, which should be due back by March 29th. And this is evidence that is within the DOJ and the FBI's possession. And we have to see it because these people weaponize their offices to get Trump. And we're not asking to weaponize the DOJ and the FBI inappropriately. We just want accountability for the people who thus far have gotten away with all of this. They're just running around free. They're showing up on cable news, making a ton of money, getting celebrated and receiving accolades from the Democratic weaponized party.
Okay, there you have it, folks. Let me click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Robert Gouveia. All right, this is the video I shared with you. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. Okay, let's jump back here and wrap this up with X22 report, Mr. and Mrs. X. Dem governors destroyed their states. Now they're begging for money. Midterm panic sets in, episode 31. Okay, let's check this out. I like their conversation back and forth. It's, just how sometimes I talk with my wife. Let's go ahead and take a listen to this.
And I'd like to welcome Mrs. X.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, so let's start off with talking about New York and Kathy Hochul, because we know someone called Mamdani Morandani, which I think is a pretty cool name. But anyhow, she now is begging the people that left to come back to New York City, to New York, not just the city, but New York itself.
Yeah, the whole state.
Which I find very, very interesting. So what I want to do, I just want to play a clip from a little while ago when she was telling everyone pretty much to get out of here. So this is very, very interesting. So take a listen to this.
And we're here to say that the era of Trump and Zeldin and Molinaro, just jump on a bus and head down to Florida where you belong, okay? Get out of town. Get out of town. Because you don't represent our values. You are not New Yorkers.
So basically, she told everyone to get out of town. Mm-hmm. This is going back during the elections. And she says, you're not New Yorkers. Get out of New York. And basically, I think everyone listened to her.
Yeah. Well, because when you're not welcome, she said that, you're not a New Yorker. You're not welcome. What are you supposed to do with that?
So think about it. All the people that decided to say, something, you're raising taxes. Mamdani came into power and you're raising taxes on businesses. You're making it very difficult for businesses. You're continually giving money to illegals. You're funding all these different social programs that basically the American citizen doesn't want to pay for. And then you tell the people, okay, if you don't support us, get out. So now all the money left New York.
Yeah.
And now what is she doing?
Now she's begging for people to come back or to help support the state of New York because she can't do it.
So this is what she just said. Remember, she told everyone to leave, and now this is what she's saying present day.
I need people who are high net worth to support the generous social programs that we want to have in our state. Right? Now, there are some patriotic millionaires who've stepped up. Okay, cut me the check. I mean, just if you want to be supportive, but maybe the first step should be go down to Palm Beach and see who you can bring back home, because our tax base has been eroded. So I philosophically don't have a problem. It is like I have to look at the fact that we are in competition with other states who have less of a tax burden on their corporations and their individuals. And I would say remote work changed everything. There were people who could only work in an office in Manhattan or work in New York State, and they were captives to our state. They were going to stay. We saw that that's not the case. I mean, Wall Street businesses looking at Texas, they're not going there because they have a nicer governor. I know that for sure.
So many things to say about that.
Let her rip.
It's just, there's so much ridiculousness in what she just said present day. First of all, it shows that she has absolutely no idea how to run a state as a governor. She has no clue what she's doing, because she said, it's like we're in competition with other states, and why are these businesses going to Texas? Well, maybe look at what plans they have instead of just saying, oh, millionaires cut me a check. It feels.
Well, let's just back up for a second.
Yeah.
She says that, that they're competitive with other states.
Yeah. That's what she's claiming.
So she's saying they're not competitive?
I don't know. I think what she's saying is ridiculous, because if you want people to want to live in your state, what's in it for them? You can't just say, it just reminds me, it's a very...
But the thing is, she's competing with other states. Every state competes with other states.
Yes, about why you should live there. What makes it lucrative? What
again,
draws you in?
I mean, if there's no jobs in the state and the taxes are 90%,
right?
The social programs, you have to, pay for them, with 90% of your check. People are not going to stay there.
You're also harboring illegals. You're not cleaning up the garbage. You're not making it worthwhile for people to want to be there. There is a competition.
Yeah. So it is competitive.
Yeah.
But think about it. Go back to what she said before. We don't need you here. Get out. She told everyone
to leave.
And now what she's realizing is, holy crap, they actually took me up on this and they left. And I think one of the key words is captive.
Yeah.
Because think about it. Before, you were captive in our state. You couldn't work anywhere except in the state. Now, people have the ability to work remotely. And I think this tells you a lot. Because if someone loved the state and someone wanted to work in that state and live in that state and thrive in that state, even when they have the chance to work remotely, they would stay in that state. But since you have the ability to work remotely, why would someone leave that state and work someplace else?
Because who wants to live in a place that she's promote? Like New York, I hate to say it. I mean, I'm a New Yorker. It makes me really sad to see what's happening to New York. But like you said, if you are struggling to live there, they're also making it a sanctuary place where I think people don't even feel safe anymore. So when you have all of those things stacking up, you're not going to stay. What's your incentive to stay in a state? Even if you loved it, grew up there, enjoyed it there. But when, the education's going downhill because you're in this, you're harboring all of these illegal people. And then they're getting everything, and the people are getting nothing. And then most of your money that you're making, because it's a very expensive, if you're specifically in Manhattan, it's a very expensive place to live. If you're living in Manhattan, that most of your money is going to taxes. Like they want almost all of your money, more than half, I believe.
Well, think about it. She also said her generous social programs.
I know.
So, I mean, really think about it. Illegals are getting free food, childcare, education tax credits, healthcare, housing assistance. They're getting free mental health services,
everything.
College tuition.
Everything.
Luckily, they have social programs set up, generous social programs.
For non-Americans.
and they want
Non-New Yorkers.
Americans, think about this, to come back because she kicked them out of there and pay for all of this. Why would anyone do this?
Her first of all, and also what I was going to say when she just did that little speech that we just played, it also just reminds me of like a kid, like a 12-year-old kid, teenager or whatever, that has no concept of money, you know?
Yeah.
And they just keep going to mom and dad like, oh, can I have $5? Can I have $20? Can I have $50 for this? Oh, you can just pay for it, mom and dad. And then the mom and dad pays and pays and pays until they're like, you know what? You're cut off. You have to figure this out, you know, be a grown up and figure out your stuff as you get older. She instead, as the adult in the room, you know, she's in charge of the state of New York. That is her job. She is the governor. And instead of trying to figure out, well, what's making businesses want to go to Texas? What's making people want to go to the state of Florida and live there and have a different quality of life? Instead of looking at what tax breaks might be in place, what incentives might be in place for corporations, what kind of situations, you know, we have in our states, instead of looking at those real things, she just thinks that she should be like, oh, give me money, give me a check by patriotic billionaires. And she specifically mentions Palm Beach, which was very interesting. And it just feels like instead of, you know, classic like behavior that you're not really looking at how to solve the problem, you just want to beg for money and put a Band-Aid on it. And because your generous programs need to stay in place to keep your illegal people happy that are not even citizens of this country. So you can keep doing that. There's so much wrong with it.
And I agree. I mean, she's looking outward instead of looking inward of why this is happening. I agree with that. And if you notice, she never mentions, well, maybe we should get rid of some of the social programs. Maybe we should stop giving to illegals. Maybe we should actually look at our entire budget. Maybe we have to revamp things. Maybe we need to bring businesses back. Maybe we should make it a lot better for people to come back into the state, to live in this state. But instead, they're doing the opposite. California is actually doing the same exact thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much fraud in this country. It's absolutely ridiculous. And what's happening right now, the fraud now is being exposed. What you're witnessing in New York right now is that they cannot fund their fraud. You see what Trump has done right now? He's cut a lot of these states off. They're no longer receiving the free federal funding that they received in the past, which is making it very, very difficult for these states to actually operate. Actually, when you start to look at the country, you start to look at the towns, the cities, the states, basically they've been taking federal money. Where does the federal money come from? Well, that comes from the Federal Reserve. And how do we get that? We borrow that currency. So now, if everyone is held accountable, most of the blue states, most of the blue cities, most of the blue towns, they will collapse under their own weight fraud.
Yeah. I mean, look at what's happening in California now, all the investigations going on. It's the same thing. And it is why a lot of businesses have left that have their businesses, their flagship stores there for years are leaving the state of California. And again, going to Texas and Florida. Like, why is that? Excuse me. And instead of these governors asking, okay, why, why are they going to these states specifically? What are the incentives? What are the reasons? They're just like doubling down on their ridiculous programs and their stuff. And they're just like begging for more money. I mean, you even look at California, you have that lady that was Newsom's lady that was building that bridge. The bridge to nowhere.
To help the animals cross the highway.
Because they know.
I mean, that bridge is hilarious. I mean, they made it like dirt, like it made it look like the surrounding. Of course, the animals can't get onto the bridge because there's no, on-ramp, off-ramp type of thing.
And maybe they can't read. Like, they don't know how to do that. Like, it's like, how did the chicken cross the road
I was
by the
joking
land
with you
bridge?
before,
oh my God.
Jimmy the deer is like roaming around and, looking around like, how am I going to cross this? Hey, wait, there's a bridge down there. Oh, that's for me. I'm going to be using it. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous because I think animals, if they want to get across the road, they're just going to go across the road. They're not going to go, you know what? We got to follow the signs to our bridge. Let's cross over there. Because think about it. It's a very wide stretch of highway and this little overpass. I don't think the animals are going to start to say, you know something? I'm going to trek 3 miles up the road, get to that bridge, cross over.
Well, they don't know
and I'll be
that.
safe.
It's happenstance if they happen upon that path. It's not like it's like, oh, like you said, oh, Jimmy, lead the way. Let's go that way. Like, it's like one of those movies where the animals talk. I hate those movies, by the way. But it's like when you hear them all talking to each other and you do have to laugh about it and meanwhile, she's holding like a stuffed animal saying how great her bridge is to be. That's already It's over the time,
Billions
and
of
it's
over-
$21 million over budget, and she's asking for more. Like it's insane. But this is what they do. They just keep asking for more, like spoiled child that just keeps getting like unlimited funds. And it's like, where the hell is all of this money going? I think Stephen Miller, we were just talking about, was saying that the other day. He said, if we stop with all of this, what was he saying to the president?
If we stopped all the fraud, we'd be able to balance the budget,
which is amazing.
And I think he's just talking about the fraud in Minnesota, New York, California, Oregon, Washington, in many of these blue areas. Yes, there's trillions and trillions of dollars of fraud throughout these different states. And Stephen Miller did say, if we stopped all that, we could actually balance the budget. I probably, in my mind, and I think Trump actually mentioned, the fraud is much, much larger than anyone could ever imagine, even bigger than the numbers that are being reported. I think they're way above that, because you really have to count the money that was being sent through USAID, through the NGOs. You have to also count the fraud that had been, sent from the Federal Reserve to other areas that are added to the debt. And I think when it's all said and done, I think we're going to find out that the debt that we have isn't really connected to the people, and people have been using all this money for. I think we're going to learn that was created out of fraud, out of criminal activity, and I don't believe the people are responsible for all this.
It's just scary, because you feel like your whole life you hear about, the debt ceiling and we're always in debt. And it's like, how are we always in debt? We're supposed, greatest country, prosperous country. But then you realize that you're funding all these things, or they have all these little scams going, or, studying salamanders' reproductive cycles in like Zimbabwe or something. I mean, I don't know if that's, but it's like that kind of crazy stuff. But that is what they were talking about.
Well, the debt ceiling was basically put into place to convince you that things were under control, because back in 1971, when we came off the gold standard and we went full fiat, which means there was no checks and balances, we came off the gold standard, and Congress could just borrow and borrow and borrow, and the Federal Reserve can print and print and print. When we're hooked to the gold standard, basically they were trapped in having the same amount of pieces of paper that there were gold. So the paper was connected to the gold, and if we didn't have more gold, they couldn't create more of those pieces of paper, which means Congress couldn't borrow. And that's where you get a lot of your fraud.
Well, and it also puts you, though, on a real budget, because if you don't have that money, okay, that's not a project we can take on right now for whatever reason. Just like when you run a household, or when you have a family, you know what you have budgeted for groceries, what you have budgeted. Maybe there's a special project you want to do in your home, or a piece of furniture you want for your apartment, but you're like, what, I have to save for that. I have to wait for that. But Congress didn't want to do that, I guess. And, when you have the power of the purse strings, they basically made this unending cycle where they get whatever they want, which, I mean, look at what's happening now with Department of Homeland Security. It's terrible what's happening to all those DHS workers that have not gotten a paycheck. And meanwhile, Congress is not doing their job by doing all this filibuster stuff and not nothing's really moving ahead. And then the House is like, well, then we're not going to do any of your work. And basically they're just playing this like pissing match. And they're getting paid, though, while they're really not doing their job. They're just sitting there stalling because they don't want to go along with anything President Trump wants to do. And actually, most of the American people, because most of the American people, not just the Republicans, the Democrats, I think 71% of Democrats want the SAVE Act.
Okay, let me go ahead and click on the Rumble link here. I'm 17 minutes into this 52-minute video. Let me show you that this video does come from X22 Report. It's a video I shared with you. I'm following their channel. I've given them a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Let's jump back here and copy the live chat into a comment. There we go. Close that out. And also, while I'm doing that, let me go ahead and share some information with you from Rumble Wallet, okay?
They can cancel your accounts, freeze your cards, decide what you're allowed to buy, say, or support. Big banks and financial institutions have total control, and they use it. That's why financial independence matters more now than ever.
Introducing Rumble Wallet. A wallet built for real freedom. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company. Designed for patriots who stand tall, this cap captures the enduring spirit of liberty. The Liberty Bell stands proud. This isn't a credit line they can shut off, it's your wallet, permanently. Yours to protect your future.
Yours to protect your family. When the system fails, when institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. Buy digital assets like Tether, Tether Gold, and Bitcoin in one secure place. No permission, no middlemen, no cancel button. And when you want to support the creators you actually believe in, you can use the Rumble Wallet app to directly tip content creators securely, instantly, and without interference.
This isn't a credit line they can shut off. It's your wallet, permanently. Yours to protect your future. Yours to protect your family. When the system fails, when institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. Rumble Wallet isn't about politics. It's about freedom, ownership, and protecting what's yours. So take control today. Download Rumble Wallet now and step away from the big banks for good. True ownership, true protection, true financial freedom.
Okay, I've copied the live chat into a comment here, so it'll be a permanent part of this video. And let me remind you folks that these videos that I shared with you are videos that come directly from the producers. I have the link to the videos in my description box, along with the link to the producer's channel, so you can go there and check out more information if you'd like. These videos that I've shared with you are videos that I've posted here on Murtech.com, where I have over 40 no-nonsense, common-sense, logic and truth videos, the kind of information that you're not going to get from the mainstream media. Now, I'd like to share all of this information with you, but unfortunately I just don't have the time to do so. But that's why I put together my daily news wrap-up. Now I'm going to put the Andrew Klavan video in here, so you can watch the rest of that if you like, and X22 report. Also have On the Fringe, News for Reasonable People, official Jovan Hutton Pulitzer, This Secret Could Change Your Life. Also from Black Conservative Perspective, We the People News, Liberty Sentinel with Alex Newman, Devory Darkins. I've got a ton of information in here. It says I have 18 videos and about 10 hours worth of information. So with that being said, just give me a few minutes here to get this set up in Rumble Studio. Go ahead and take a break, grab a cup of coffee and a donut, or a sandwich and a soft drink or a beer, or maybe even a nice glass of wine and some cheese, and meet me back here in about 15 or 20 minutes and we'll get this going. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for spending your time with me. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.